The day the human arrived at the Galactic Collegium of Valor, every species on campus remembered exactly where they were standing. The Collegium sat on the neutral world of Tessara Prime, a planet chosen specifically because it belonged to no one. For over 600 years, the Academy had trained the finest warriors from 47 star nations. Its crystal towers caught the light of 3 suns. Its training arenas bent gravity itself. The banners of 100 species hung from ancient walls, each one earned through blood and sacrifice. Today was intake day. Thousands of new cadets marched into the Grand Colonnade, a massive open hall with a ceiling so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. The tradition was simple and old. Every new cadet walked the length of the colonnade in full view of the faculty, the senior cadets, and the representatives of their species. They were expected to display themselves openly. No clothing, no armor, no hiding. You showed the galaxy what evolution had given you, and you were proud of it. The Drelkith came first. They were enormous, 9 feet tall, covered in plates of living bone that could stop a plasma round. Their eyes glowed like hot coals, and each of their 4 arms ended in fingers that could crush stone. They walked with the heavy confidence of a species that had never known physical fear. Behind them came the Vithrani, tall, serpentine beings covered in iridescent scales. Rows of venomous quills ran down their spines, and their slit-pupiled eyes tracked movement with the precision of born predators. They moved with liquid grace, every step a reminder that beauty and lethality were often the same thing. Then came the Gorathi, the Meluri, the Thasic, the Genvari, species with natural weapons that would make a human nightmare look gentle. Cadets with acid glands. Cadets with 4 hearts. Cadets who could see in spectrums that had no name in any human language. Each one walked bare and proud, showing what they were. Then the hall went quiet. She came through the eastern gate alone. No delegation walked behind her. No species banner flew above her. She was the only human ever admitted to the Collegium, and she had no one to walk beside. But that was not what silenced the hall. Commander Lyra Voss was covered from head to toe in pitch-black powered armor. Every centimeter of her body was sealed behind composite plating. Her face was hidden behind a smooth, reflective visor that showed nothing, not her eyes, not her expression, not even the shape of her skull. The armor hummed with a low, constant energy. It moved with her like a second skin, fluid and precise, clearly military-grade and clearly expensive. She walked steadily down the center of the colonnade. Her boots made no sound on the ancient stone floor. The armor's systems compensated for every step, every breath. She was a black mirror moving through a sea of exposed flesh, scales, and bone. The whispers started immediately. She is hiding. Coward. Humans have no natural weapons. Of course she wears a shell. This is an insult to the Collegium. In the front row of the senior cadets, a young Vithrani named Rin Tessavar watched her pass with his head tilted in curiosity. He did not whisper. He studied her the way he studied everything, carefully, without assumption. Something about the way she moved interested him. The armor was heavy, clearly, but she carried it as if she had been born inside it. That took training. That took years. Beside him, a massive Drelkith named Koreth Denshal crossed all 4 of his arms and let out a low growl that vibrated the air. Koreth was the son of a famous general. He had been raised to believe that strength was something you showed, not something you hid. The armored human offended him on a level he could barely put into words. "That thing should not be here," Koreth said. His voice was like gravel sliding down a mountain. On the faculty dais, Senior Commandant Thurak Veldros stood with his scarred arms folded behind his back. He was Old Gorathi, a species known for their brutal honesty and their hatred of deception. He had fought in 3 interstellar wars. He had buried more students than he cared to remember. He watched the armored human cross the colonnade and said nothing, but his jaw tightened. Beside him, Instructor Eshali, a Meluri empath, small and silver-skinned, reached out with her mind as she did with every new cadet. She could feel the emotional signature of every being in the hall. The Draelkith burned with hot pride. The Vithrani hummed with cool ambition. Every species had its own emotional flavor. When she reached for the human, she felt nothing. The armor blocked her completely. This was unusual. Standard military armor did not have empathic shielding. Someone had built that feature into the suit on purpose. As Shali frowned, she pushed harder. For just a fraction of a second she caught something, a flash like lightning behind thick clouds. It was pain, not sadness, not fear, physical pain, deep, constant, and enormous. Then the armor's shielding adjusted and shut her out completely. As Shali's silver hands began to tremble. She had been reading emotions for over a century. She had felt the grief of dying soldiers and the rage of war criminals. She had never felt anything like what she had just touched inside that armor. She looked at Veldrose. He noticed her expression. "What is it?" he asked quietly. "I do not know," as Shali whispered. "But something is very wrong with that human, or very right, I cannot tell which." After the ceremony, Lyra was directed to the registration hall. A Thasic administrator, a four-eyed bureaucrat with thin, nervous fingers, processed her enrollment documents and then paused. "Commander Voss, you are required to remove your armor for the biometric identification scan. This is standard for all cadets." Lyra stood perfectly still. When she spoke, her voice came through the helmet's vocoder, clear, calm, and completely without emotion. "I will follow every rule of this academy. I will train, fight, and bleed like every other cadet. But the armor stays on. That is not a request." The administrator blinked all four eyes. "Commander, I cannot simply." Lyra placed a small datachit on the desk. It was sealed with the emblem of Earth's United Defense Council, a simple blue circle containing a single white star. "Read it," she said. The administrator inserted the chit into his reader. His four eyes moved across the text. One by one, each eye widened. He looked up at the armored figure standing before him, and for the first time in his 30-year career, he did not know what to say. He waved her through, without another word. That night the Collegium buzzed with a single question. The same question that would follow Lyra Voss through every hallway, every training ground, and every battle for the months to come. What was the human hiding under all that armor? And why was she so afraid to let anyone see? The first week was designed to break them. The Collegium did not believe in gentle introductions. New cadets were thrown into combat trials, survival exercises, and tactical simulations from the very first morning. The philosophy was old and simple: expose weakness early, so it could be burned away or used against you. Lyra was assigned to Squad Vareth 7. There were 7 of them in total. Rin Tessivar, the Vithrani, was her squad's scout, fast, observant, and deadly quiet. Koreth Denshall, the Draelkith, was their heavy fighter, and he made it clear from the first hour that he considered Lyra's presence a personal insult. The others, a Gorathi named Thalek, 2 Genvari twins called Savi and Merk, and a Thasic engineer named Dalan, watched her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. None of them had ever trained with a human before. Most of them had never even seen one in person. The combat trials came first. Cadets were paired off in the gravity-shifted arena, a circular platform where the pull of the ground could change direction without warning. It tested balance, reflexes, and the ability to fight when nothing was stable. Lyra's first opponent was a Gorathi from another squad. He was twice her size, with skin like rough stone and fists that could dent ship plating. The other cadets gathered around the arena edge to watch. Most of them expected the fight to last about 10 seconds. It lasted 4 minutes. Lyra moved through the shifting gravity like water. When the floor tilted, she was already leaning into it. When her opponent lunged, she was not where he expected. She did not try to match his strength, she couldn't. Instead, she redirected his momentum, struck at joints where his stone-like skin was thinnest, and used the gravity shifts to throw him off balance. He hit the ground 3 times before he finally caught her with a backhand that sent her skidding across the arena floor. She got up. She always got up. She lost that fight, but she lost it slowly, and she lost it while making a Gorathi twice her mass work for every point. The cadets who had come to laugh did not laugh. Korath, watching from the sideline with all 4 arms crossed, said nothing. But his eyes followed her with a new kind of attention, the kind a predator gives to something it cannot yet classify. The survival exercise came 3 days later. Squads were dropped into a biome called the Thornville, a dense, hostile jungle on the northern continent of Tessara Prime. The air was thick with spores that could paralyze a Vithrani. The trees moved. The water was acidic. Every plant and animal in the Thornville existed for one purpose, to kill whatever touched it. Each squad was given a single objective: reach the extraction point alive within 48 hours. No weapons, no technology, just biology and brains. Lyra's armor gave her obvious advantages. The suit filtered the air, regulated her temperature, and protected her from the acid rain that began falling on the first night. Korath pointed this out loudly and often. "Take off the shell," he said, standing in the rain while acid hissed against his bone plates. "Fight this world as yourself." Lyra did not respond to the challenge. Instead, she knelt beside a fallen log and began pulling apart the bark with her armored fingers. The others watched, confused, as she extracted a handful of pale, squirming larvae and crushed them into a paste. "Spread this on your exposed skin," she told the squad. "These larvae feed on the same acid compounds in the rain. Their body fluid neutralizes it." Dalan, the Thasic engineer, scanned the paste with his biological sensors. "She is correct. The chemical reaction would create a temporary protective barrier." Korath stared at the paste in her hand. "How did you know that?" "I studied the biome database before the drop," Lyra said. "Every organism in this jungle is trying to kill something else. That means every organism has a defense. You just have to find it and borrow it." Over the next 2 days, Lyra proved again and again that her value was not in the armor. She read animal tracks that the Vithrani's sharp eyes missed. She built traps from vine and thorn that caught food while they slept. She predicted a flash flood by watching the behavior of insects near the riverbank, and moved the squad to high ground an hour before the water came roaring through. Rin watched all of this with growing fascination. On the second night, while the others slept under a shelter Lyra had designed from overlapping leaves, he approached her. "You think differently from any species I have studied," he said quietly. His quills lay flat against his back, a Vithrani sign of trust. "Your mind does not move in straight lines. It jumps. It connects things that should not be connected." Lyra's visor turned toward him. "That is how humans survive. We are not the strongest or the fastest. We never were. On our homeworld, almost everything was bigger than us and most things were more dangerous. So we learned to think sideways. We learned to use everything." "And the armor?" Rin asked carefully. There was a pause. When she spoke, something in her voice changed just slightly, just enough for Rin's sensitive hearing to catch. "The armor is not about what I cannot do without it. It is about what I must keep contained within it." Before he could ask what that meant, she turned away and began checking the perimeter traps. They reached the extraction point with 6 hours to spare, one of the fastest times of any squad. Korath said nothing about the armor for the rest of the day. The tactical simulation came next, holographic warfare in a digital battle space. Squad Vareth 7 was pitted against 3 other squads in a complex urban environment. Korath, as the squad's strongest fighter, took command. His strategy was the same one Draelkith had used for 10,000 years, overwhelming frontal assault. It was failing badly. Lyra watched the tactical display inside her visor. She could see what Korath could not. The enemy squads were baiting them, drawing the assault into a kill box. In 90 seconds, Squad Vereth 7 would be surrounded and eliminated. She made a decision. Through a private communication channel, she contacted Rin, Dalan, and the Genvari twins. In 12 seconds, she laid out a new plan. It was complex, risky, and required perfect timing. It also required directly disobeying Koreth's orders. They did it anyway. While Koreth led his frontal charge into the trap, Lyra's group looped around through the sewage system of the simulated city. They emerged behind the enemy's command position. Dalan disabled their communications. Rin took out their scouts. The twins created a false signal that made it look like reinforcements were arriving from the west. In the confusion, Koreth's charge, which should have been a disaster, became the hammer that drove the enemy into Lyra's anvil. They won decisively. Koreth was furious, not because they lost, because she had been right and he had been wrong, and everyone in the squad knew it. "You went behind my back," he snarled, towering over her in the debriefing room. "I went around the enemy's front," Lyra replied calmly. "That is a different thing." Later that evening, Instructor Eshali requested a private wellness evaluation with Lyra. The Collegium required periodic empathic assessments of all cadets to monitor psychological stability. Lyra could not refuse without raising more suspicion than she already had. They sat in Eshali's office, a quiet, silver room filled with soft light. Eshali reached out with her empathic senses, gently, as she did with every cadet. The armor's shielding resisted her, but Eshali was old and skilled. She found a crack not in the armor but in Lyra's concentration. Just for a moment, the human's guard slipped. What Eshali felt made her gasp. Pain, not the sharp kind that comes and goes. This was deep, constant, and total. It lived in every part of Lyra's body like a second heartbeat. It had been there for a long time, years maybe. And beneath the pain, holding it all together like iron bands around a barrel, was something Eshali had never encountered in any species. A will so dense and compressed it felt like standing next to a collapsing star. The armor's shielding snapped back into place, and Eshali was shut out. Lyra's visor turned toward the trembling empath. "You felt something." It was not a question. Eshali took a long, shaking breath. "Commander Voss, what is happening inside that armor?" The silence lasted 10 seconds. Then Lyra stood and walked to the door. Before she left, she said one thing. "Something that chose me, and something I chose back." That night, Eshali went to Commandant Veldrose. She stood before his desk with her silver hands clasped together to stop them from shaking. "That human is carrying something inside her that I cannot identify," she said. "But I can tell you this, whatever it is, the pain it causes her is beyond anything I have ever sensed in a living being, and she is bearing it deliberately. She is choosing to suffer." Veldrose leaned forward. "Why?" Eshali's voice dropped to a whisper. "I do not know, but whatever the reason, it is not weakness. It is the opposite of weakness, and it frightens me." By the middle of the semester, the Collegium had split into 2 camps. The first camp, led quietly by Koreth Denshall, believed that Lyra Voss was a fraud. Her armor hid something shameful, maybe a deformity, maybe illegal cybernetic enhancements, maybe nothing at all. Perhaps the suit was doing all the work, and the creature inside it was as soft and useless as every other human in the galaxy. Koreth had gathered cadets from a dozen species behind this belief. He had filed 3 formal complaints with the Faculty Council, each one demanding that Lyra be forced to remove the armor or face expulsion. Each one had been quietly denied, and each denial had made Koreth angrier. The second camp had no leader, but Rin Tessivar was its closest thing to a voice. These cadets did not know what Lyra was hiding, but they had trained beside her. They had watched her think her way through problems that raw strength could not solve. They had seen her take hits that should have put her on the ground and stand back up without a sound. Whatever was under the armor, these cadets were beginning to suspect it was not weakness. The tension came to a head when the Collegium announced the Crucible. The Crucible was the semester's defining event, a brutal inter-squad combat tournament held in the deep arenas beneath the academy. Squads fought squad in escalating rounds of direct combat. The rules were simple: fight until one side could not continue. Victories determined rankings, career assignments, and the reputation a cadet would carry for the rest of their military life. The squads that failed were broken apart. Their members were scattered and reassigned, a mark of shame that never fully washed away. Squad Varath 7 entered the Crucible as underdogs. They had a Draelkith who refused to follow anyone's lead, a human in sealed armor, and a collection of cadets who had only recently learned to stop arguing long enough to function. But they had something else: weeks of hard training that had slowly, grudgingly welded them into a unit. Korath still did not trust Lyra, but he had learned to use her. Rin had become her eyes and ears. Dalan provided technical support. The Genvari twins moved like a single organism on the battlefield. Thalek, the quiet Gorathi, had become the squad's anchor, the one who held the line when everything else fell apart. They won their first match, then their second, then their third. Each victory was ugly, hard-earned, and closer than it should have been, but they kept winning. The Collegium began to notice. In the semi-final round, Squad Varath 7 faced Squad Korath 3, a team stacked with heavy fighters, including 2 Gorathi and a Draelkith who was nearly as large as Korath. This squad had been assembled by cadets loyal to Korath's anti-human faction. They had one goal that went beyond winning the tournament. They wanted to break the armor. The match began in a simulated urban ruin: crumbling walls, narrow corridors, and shifting floors designed to prevent any squad from holding a stable position. Squad Varath 7 moved in their practiced formation. Korath took point. Rin scouted the flanks. Lyra directed from the center, reading the battlefield through her suit's sensors and calling adjustments through the squad's communication channel. The enemy squad hit them fast and hard. The 2 Gorathi came through the east wall like living battering rams, scattering the formation. The Draelkith engaged Korath directly, a clash of bone and muscle that shook the arena floor. In the chaos, the remaining enemy cadets pushed through the center, heading straight for Lyra. It was not random, it was targeted. Lyra fought back with everything she had. Her armor systems boosted her speed and strength, but the opponents were too many and too coordinated. They were not trying to score points. They were trying to break her open. A Gorathi cadet, the largest one, nearly 10 feet tall, caught Lyra with a full-force strike to her left side. The blow was enormous. It lifted her off the ground and slammed her into a concrete pillar. The pillar cracked, and so did the armor. A fracture line ran from her left ribs down to her hip. The black plating split open just 2 inches, just for a moment. But in that moment, under the bright arena lights, something was visible through the crack. It was not skin. It was not machine. It was something dark, wet, and alive. It glistened like the inside of a living creature, and it moved, pulsing slowly, independently of Lyra's own body, as if something beneath the armor was breathing on its own. The Gorathi who had struck her saw it. He froze. His 4 eyes went wide, and he took an involuntary step backward. His training, his instincts, everything that made him a warrior, all of it screamed at him that what he had just seen was wrong in a way he could not name. Lyra's hand was already moving. She pulled a tube of quick-hardening sealant from her suit's repair kit and sprayed it across the crack. The gray compound expanded, hardened, and sealed the breach in 3 seconds. She straightened up, rolled her shoulders, and faced the stunned Gorathi. "Are we still fighting?" she said. Her voice through the vocoder was perfectly steady. "Or are you done?" The Gorathi did not answer. He was still staring at the sealed crack. In his eyes, there was something that had not been there before: not anger, not contempt, but fear. Squad Varath 7 won the match. Korath defeated his Draelkith opponent with sheer, grinding brutality. Rin disabled 2 enemy cadets with precise venom strikes to their nerve clusters. The Genvari twins overwhelmed the remaining fighters with coordinated attacks from both flanks, but the victory was overshadowed by what had happened in the center of the arena. Dozens of cadets had seen the breach. Within an hour, the entire Collegium was talking about it. The rumors that had followed Lyra since her arrival evolved into something darker. She was not just hiding her body, she was hiding something that was alive, something that was not human. Commandant Veldros summoned her the next morning. His office was at the top of the Collegium's central tower, a circular room with windows that looked out over the entire campus. The old Gorathi warrior stood behind his desk, his scarred face unreadable. He had fought beside aliens of every kind. He had earned his rank through decades of service. He did not frighten easily. But Eshali's report was still on his desk. And now, half the student body had seen something alive moving beneath a human's armor. "Sit down, Commander Voss," he said. Lyra sat. Her armor clicked softly as it adjusted to the chair. "I have been patient," Veldros said. "I have respected the diplomatic note from your government. I have given you every opportunity to prove yourself through action, and you have. Your performance has been exceptional. Your tactical mind is among the finest I have seen in 30 years of teaching." He paused. "But I am responsible for the safety and trust of every cadet in this institution. I cannot allow a secret of this magnitude to continue. Something is living inside your armor, Commander. Something that is part of you. I need to know what it is." Lyra was silent for a long time. Through the windows, the three sons of Tessara Prime moved slowly across the sky, casting triple shadows across the floor. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter than Veldros had ever heard it. "Commandant, I was sent here to prove that humanity belongs among the warrior species of this galaxy. But I was also sent because I am the only human alive who could survive the journey. What I carry inside this armor is not a secret because I am ashamed. It is a secret because the galaxy is not ready to understand what humans are willing to do to themselves to survive." Veldros felt something he had not felt in decades. It was not fear, exactly. It was the cold recognition that he was standing at the edge of something vast that he did not yet understand. He gave her 1 week. In 7 days, she would stand before the full faculty and senior class and reveal what she was. If she refused, she would be expelled, and humanity's seat at the Collegium would be revoked permanently. Lyra nodded once. She stood. She walked to the door. 1 week, she said. That will be enough. That night, alone in her sealed quarters, Lyra locked the door, engaged the privacy screens, and began to remove her armor. The chest plate came away first, then the shoulder guards, then the abdominal plating. Each piece she set down carefully, the way a person might undress a wound. What lay beneath was something no species in the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. From the base of her skull, down across her shoulders, wrapping around her ribs and spreading across her back like dark roots through soil, a living organism had fused itself to her body. It was called a Harathkin. The galaxy's oldest records described them as bioweapons created by an empire that had been dead for millennia. They bonded permanently with a host, weaving into muscle, nerve, and bone. They gave their host extraordinary abilities: healing, reflexes, endurance, and the power to adapt to any physical threat in real time. The cost was pain, constant, total, and permanent. The bond between host and symbiote was held together by shared suffering. No species in recorded history had ever survived the bonding process. The pain alone killed them, not their bodies but their minds. They simply stopped being conscious and never came back. Earth's military had found a dormant clutch of Harathkin eggs on a wrecked alien ship drifting at the edge of human space. They studied them. They understood what the symbiotes could do, and they asked for volunteers, knowing that the process would be agony, that the bond could never be undone, and that every previous host species in galactic history had died screaming. 12 humans volunteered, Lyra was the third. She was the only one who woke up. Now she sat on the edge of her bed, the symbiote shifting gently against her body. Its dark tissue caught the dim light of her quarters. Thin tendrils pulsed beneath her skin in time with her heartbeat. It made a soft clicking sound, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Lyra placed her hand flat against the largest mass of the symbiote, where it wrapped around her ribs. She could feel it respond to her touch, not with words, not with thoughts, but with something older than language. A recognition. A bond. "I know," she whispered. "It hurts, it always hurts, but we are almost there, just a little longer." The clicking sound slowed. The tendrils relaxed against her skin. They sat together in the dark, human and alien, host and symbiote, two living things sharing one body and one endless, chosen pain, and they waited for the day that was coming. The shuttle from Earth arrived on the fourth day. It was small, unmarked, and carried only one passenger. Director Hadley Cole stepped onto the landing platform wearing a plain gray suit and an expression that gave away absolutely nothing. He was a quiet man, thin, middle-aged, and so ordinary-looking that most alien species would have trouble picking him out of a crowd of three. This was deliberate. Hadley Cole had spent his entire career being the kind of person nobody noticed until it was too late. He was the head of Earth's Office of Biological Advancement. He was the man who had authorized the Harethkin program. And he was the only person in the galaxy, besides Lyra herself, who fully understood what walked the halls of the Collegium. Cole met first with Commandant Veldros and the senior faculty in a sealed conference chamber. He did not waste time. "I will be direct with you," Cole said, his hands folded on the table. "Commander Voss is carrying a Harethkin symbiote. It is bonded to her body permanently. It cannot be removed without killing both her and the organism. She has carried it for 3 years, 4 months, and 11 days. The room erupted. Faculty members from 6 different species spoke at once. The word Harethkin had not been spoken in serious scientific circles for thousands of years. Most academics considered them extinct relics of a dead empire, preserved only in fragmented historical records. The idea that a living specimen existed and that it was fused to a human was beyond anything they had prepared for. Veldros silenced the room with a single raised hand. The Harethkin bonding process was considered lethal to every known sapient species, he said slowly. The historical records are clear. The pain of integration destroys the host's consciousness, always, without exception. Cole nodded. That is correct for every species tested. The Harethkin creators tried hundreds of host species over their empire's lifespan. All of them died during bonding. The pain exceeded their neurological capacity to remain aware. Their minds simply shut down and never restarted. "Then how," said Instructor Eshali, her voice barely above a whisper, "is she alive?" Cole looked at the empath with an expression that was almost gentle. "Because humans are different, not stronger, not tougher, different. We have a neurological trait that appears to be unique among sapient species. We can choose to remain conscious through pain that should render us catatonic. Other species' nervous systems have safety limits. When pain exceeds a certain threshold, the mind protects itself by shutting down. Humans do not have that limit, or rather we have it, but we can override it. We can feel everything, every nerve, every cell screaming, and we can decide to stay awake." He paused to let this settle. Commander Voss did not survive the bonding because she was immune to pain. She survived because she felt all of it, every second of an 18-hour integration process that would have killed a Draelkith in minutes, and she refused to let go of consciousness. She held on through will alone. Eshali made a sound that was halfway between a gasp and a sob. She had felt a fraction of Lyra's pain during their session, just a flash. It had shaken her for days. Now she understood that what she had felt was not a peak. It was the baseline. It was what Lyra felt every moment of every day. Veldros sat in silence for a long time. Then he asked, "Why? Why would your species do this to one of its own? Cole's expression did not change. Because when humanity entered the galactic community, we looked around and we saw the truth. Every species we met was superior to us in some biological way. Drelkith have natural armor. Vithrani have venom. Gorathi have 4 arms and skin like stone. Melori have empathy. Humans have none of these things. We are small, soft, and fragile. On paper, we are the weakest sapient species in the galaxy. He leaned forward. But we noticed something. In all of galactic history, no species had ever successfully bonded with a Harath kin. Not because the technology was lost, because no species could survive the pain. And we thought, what if the reason we have no natural weapons is because our weapon was never meant to be physical? What if our evolutionary advantage is the thing that every other species considers a flaw, the fact that we feel everything and keep going anyway? The room was very quiet. We were right, Cole said simply. 12 volunteers, 1 survivor, Commander Voss. She is proof that humanity's place in this galaxy is not at the bottom. It is wherever we decide to stand. 3 days later, Lyra stood in the grand arena. The arena was packed. Every cadet, every instructor, and every faculty member had come. Word had spread through the Collegium like fire through dry grass. The human was going to remove her armor. Rumors about what lay beneath ranged from the plausible to the impossible. None of them came close to the truth. Lyra stood in the center of the arena floor, alone. The triple lights of the arena cast sharp shadows around her black armor. She looked up at the thousands of faces staring down at her, alien faces, hostile faces, curious faces, frightened faces, and she was still. Then she began. The helmet came off first. Her face was young, sharp-boned, and pale with exhaustion. Her dark hair was cut short and matted with sweat. Her eyes were steady. She set the helmet on the ground beside her. The shoulder plates came next, then the arm guards, then the gauntlets. Beneath them her arms were human, thin, muscular, scarred from training. The audience watched with confused disappointment. She looked ordinary. Then the chest plate came away. The sound that moved through the arena was not a gasp. It was lower and deeper, the involuntary reaction of thousands of beings seeing something their instincts told them should not exist. The Harathkin symbiote covered her from the base of her skull to the bottom of her ribcage. Its dark, chitinous tissue was fused with her skin and muscle so completely that it was impossible to tell where human ended and alien began. It moved slowly, constantly, like the breathing of a second organism layered on top of the first. Thin tendrils ran beneath the skin of her arms like dark veins. Along her spine, ridges of hardened symbiotic tissue formed a lattice that flexed with every breath she took. It was alive. It was part of her, and it was clearly, visibly, causing her pain. Her jaw was tight. Her hands were clenched. Tiny muscles along her neck and shoulders twitched in patterns that every medical professional in the audience recognized as pain response. Instructor Eshali, sitting in the faculty section, let out a cry. With the armor removed, Lyra's emotional signature hit her like a wall. The pain was staggering, a white-hot constant that saturated every nerve in Lyra's body. And beneath it, holding everything together, was that same terrifying will, dense, focused, and absolutely unbreakable. Eshali was not the only empath in the audience. 3 others were present. All of them wept openly. Commandant Veldros rose from his seat. His voice carried across the silent arena. Commander Voss, how long have you carried this? 3 years, 4 months, and 18 days. Her voice was raw. Without the vocoder, it was smaller than anyone expected, but it did not shake. Does the pain ever stop? No. Your armor, does it reduce the pain? Lyra almost smiled. It was a small, tired expression that made her look very young. No, Commandant. The armor has empathic shielding. I did not wear it to protect myself from the pain. I wore it to protect the empaths around me from feeling it. It seemed unkind to make others carry something that was mine to carry. The silence that followed was the deepest silence the grand arena had ever held. In the front row, Korath Denshall stood motionless. He had spent the entire semester trying to humiliate her, to expose her, to prove that she was a fraud hiding behind metal and lies. He had called her a coward. He had called her species worthless. He had done everything in his power to break her. Now he looked at her, this small, soft, clawless human standing before thousands of superior beings, with a living nightmare fused to her body, enduring a pain that would have killed him in seconds, enduring it by choice, enduring it for years. And something inside Korath shifted like tectonic plates moving after centuries of stillness. Slowly, deliberately, he crossed all four arms over his chest. It was the Draelkith salute of deepest recognition, the one given only to warriors who had proven themselves through suffering that lesser beings could not imagine. It had never been given to a non-Draelkith, not once in recorded history. Until now. Rin Tessivar was the first to stand. He walked down from the seating area, crossed the arena floor, and stood beside Lyra. His venomous quills were flat against his back. He said nothing. He did not need to. He was choosing his side. Others followed: Dalan, the Genvari twins, Thalek, then cadets from other squads, Gorathi, Thasik, even a few Draelkith who had once signed Korath's petitions against her. One by one they came to stand on the arena floor. Not everyone. There were still those who watched with cold eyes, unmoved, unconvinced, but they were fewer now, and they were quieter. Director Cole, watching from the faculty balcony, allowed himself a small, careful nod. After the arena emptied, Lyra sat alone on the stone steps outside. She had put the armor back on, the shielding reactivated, the visor sealed, the pain once again hidden from the world. Rin sat down beside her. "Was it worth it?" he asked. She looked up at the sky. 3 moons hung over a world that was not hers, surrounded by species that would never feel what she felt. "Ask me when it is over." Rin tilted his head. "When is it over?" Through her visor, Lyra smiled, the second real smile anyone at the Collegium had ever seen from her. "It is not." The Apex trial was supposed to be the final test of the semester, a controlled military exercise on a restricted section of Tessara Prime's southern continent. Squads would be dropped into rough terrain, given objectives, and judged on how well they performed under pressure. The weapons were set to non-lethal. The threats were simulated. The danger was carefully managed. That was the plan. The plan lasted about 40 minutes. 8 squads were deployed into a canyon system called the Gravine, a maze of deep ravines and crumbling rock formations left behind by ancient geological activity. The squads scattered to their assigned zones, moving through the canyons in practiced formations. The air was dry and cold. The sky above the canyon walls was the color of iron. Rin was the first to notice something was wrong. His Vithrani senses picked up a vibration in the ground, deep, rhythmic, and mechanical. It was not part of the simulation. He raised a hand and the squad stopped. "Something is moving underground," he said quietly. "Something large." Before anyone could respond, the canyon wall to their left exploded outward. Rock and dust blasted across the ravine floor. Through the cloud of debris, something emerged, a machine. It was ancient, massive, and covered in the corroded markings of a civilization that had been dead for 12,000 years. It stood on 4 articulated legs, each one ending in a clawed foot that dug into solid stone like it was soft earth. Its body was an armored dome of dark metal, and from ports along its sides, weapon barrels extended and began to glow with a cold, blue light. It was a sentinel, an automated weapons platform from the Tesseran collapse, the catastrophic war that had wiped out the planet's original inhabitants thousands of years before the Collegium was built. The records said they were all destroyed or permanently deactivated. The records were wrong. The sentinel fired. The first shot hit the canyon wall above Squad Vareth 7's position. The rock vaporized. Not melted, vaporized. The heat wave knocked Thalik off his feet and singed the quills along Rin's left arm. This was not a training weapon. This was real. Across the graving, other squads encountered the same nightmare. The sentinel was not alone. The original blast had triggered a chain reaction underground, waking 3 more units from their ancient sleep. Within minutes, 4 killing machines were loose in a canyon system filled with cadets carrying non-lethal training weapons. Communications went dead. The sentinels were projecting a jamming field that covered the entire canyon network. No signals could reach the Collegium. The Rapid Response Force would not know anything was wrong until someone made it out of the jamming zone, a distance of at least 10 kilometers over broken terrain. The cadets did what cadets do in situations like this. Some froze. Some panicked. Some tried to fight with weapons that could not scratch the Sentinel's ancient armor. One squad, led by a massive Gorathi, charged the nearest Sentinel head-on. The machine cut them down with a single sweep of its beam weapon. Non-lethal suits absorbed some of the energy, but 3 cadets went down with burns that would take months to heal. In the chaos, Lyra climbed to the top of a ridge and surveyed the entire canyon. Her suit's sensors mapped the positions of all 4 sentinels, all 8 squads, and every exit route within range. She ran the calculations in her head. The math was simple and brutal. No squad could reach the edge of the jamming zone without crossing at least one sentinel's firing arc. The sentinels were too heavily armored for anything the cadets carried, and the longer they waited, the more the machines would corner them in the dead-end ravines. There was one option. Every sentinel had a central processing core, a power unit buried in the center of its armored body. If the core was destroyed, the machine would shut down. But reaching the core meant getting close, very close, and the area around each sentinel was a killing field of automated fire that no living thing could cross and survive. Lyra opened a channel to Rin. In the chaos, the sentinel's jamming did not affect short-range suit-to-suit communication. Rin, I need you to relay a message to every squad in the canyon. Use your bioluminescent signaling. It is not electromagnetic, so the jamming will not block it. What message? Rin asked. Tell them to pull back to the central ravine and hold position. Tell them to keep the sentinels focused on the north and east approaches. I need the southern approach to Sentinel 1 clear for 90 seconds. Rin was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? What I was built to do. Rin understood. He did not argue. He climbed to a high point and began flashing the ancient Vithrani light code across the canyon walls. Cadets who could read it passed the message on. Within minutes, the surviving squads began to move. Korath received the order third hand, relayed through a Genvari cadet who could barely speak through the dust clogging her lungs. He looked at the message, then looked toward the southern end of the canyon where a single armored figure was walking toward the nearest sentinel. Walking, not running, walking. He understood immediately. Everyone with me, Korath growled. We hold the northern line. We keep that machine looking at us. The human needs time. It was the first order he had ever given that put Lyra's plan above his own pride. It would not be the last. Lyra moved through the southern approach alone. The sentinel was 200 meters ahead, partially obscured by a collapsed rock formation. Its weapon ports tracked back and forth, scanning for targets. The other squads were doing their job, drawing its attention north and east. For the moment, the south was clear. She stopped 50 meters from the machine. Between her and the sentinel was open ground, flat stone with no cover, no shelter, and no shadow to hide in. If she stepped into that space, the sentinel would detect her in less than a second. Its weapons would fire in less than 2. At full sprint, it would take her approximately 12 seconds to reach the machine's body and find the core access panel. 12 seconds in an automated kill zone, designed to destroy armored vehicles. Lyra placed her hand against the symbiote's main mass, feeling it shift beneath the armor. She could sense its awareness, not thoughts, not words, but a deep biological understanding that something terrible was about to happen. The Harethkin had been engineered for exactly this kind of moment. It was an adaptation engine, a survival machine. But what she was about to ask of it would push the bond further than it had ever been pushed. "I know," she whispered. "This is going to be bad. Stay with me." The symbiote clicked once, a single, soft sound that meant something only she could understand. She ran. The sentinel detected her at 3 steps. Its nearest weapon port locked on and fired at 5 steps. The beam hit her left shoulder and burned through the outer armor plating in an instant. Pain exploded through her body, her own and the symbiote's, tangled together so tightly that she could not tell whose scream was whose. But the Harethkin was already responding. Even as the armor melted, the symbiote's tissue beneath it hardened. Dark chitinous plates pushed outward through her skin, forming a biological shield over the wound. The burned tissue healed in seconds. New cells grew over the damage like water filling a hole. At 7 steps, a second beam hit her right leg. The armor cracked. The leg buckled. The symbiote rerouted neural pathways around the damaged nerves and flooded the muscles with compounds that forced them to keep firing. Lyra stumbled but did not fall. At 9 steps, a beam struck her center mass. The chest plate shattered completely. Beneath it, the symbiote erupted outward, expanding, shifting, hardening into a wall of dark biological armor that absorbed the energy and dispersed it across its entire mass. Lyra felt the heat inside her body like swallowing a star. The pain was beyond anything she had ever experienced, beyond anything any living being in the galaxy had experienced, and remained standing. She remained standing. At 12 steps, she reached the sentinel. Her armored fist, half metal, half living chitin, punched through the corroded access panel. She found the core. She tore it out with both hands. The machine shuddered, groaned, and went still. Lyra collapsed against the dead sentinel's leg. Her armor was destroyed. The symbiote was exposed across most of her upper body, its tissue smoking and slowly regenerating. She was bleeding from wounds she could not count. Every nerve ending was on fire. She was alive. Across the canyon, the cadets saw the sentinel go dark. A Gorathi shouted the word in a voice that echoed off every wall. Hope moved through the canyon like a wave. The remaining 3 sentinels were still active, but the cadets had seen what was possible. Koreth organized a coordinated assault on the second machine. Rin led a strike team against the third. Thalek and the twins took the fourth. They used everything Lyra had taught them: creativity, coordination, and the willingness to walk toward danger instead of away from it. By the time the Rapid Response Force arrived, all 4 sentinels were down. 16 cadets were injured. None were dead. Lyra spent 3 weeks in the Collegium's medical bay. She was unconscious for the first 4 days. The symbiote repaired her body slowly, knitting bone and tissue back together cell by cell. Alien physicians monitored her around the clock, documenting a healing process that no medical textbook in the galaxy could explain. When she finally woke, her room was filled with objects: a carved bone shard from the Draelkith, their highest honor for a non-Draelkith warrior; a coiled venom quill from Rin, a Vithrani mark of chosen kinship; a small crystal from the Gorathi; a woven band from the Genvari; gifts and tokens from species she had never spoken to. Each one carried the same message in a dozen different cultural languages: "We see you. We respect you. You are one of us." Koreth visited on the 2nd week. He sat beside her bed, his massive frame barely fitting in the medical chair. He was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. "I was wrong about humans. I thought you were weak because you were soft. I did not understand that you are soft because you choose to carry your strength where no one else can see it." Lyra looked at him. "That might be the most intelligent thing you have ever said." Koreth made a sound that, for a Draelkith, was laughter. Graduation came on a morning when all three of Tessara Prime's suns rose at the same time, a rare alignment that happened only once every several years. The light was golden and warm, and it filled the grand colonnade where the semester had begun. Lyra stood among her squad, Rin on her left, Koreth behind her, the others arrayed around them. She wore her armor repaired, rebuilt, and resealed, but the visor was up. Her face was visible. She had nothing left to hide. Commandant Veldros addressed the graduating class from the same dais, where he had watched a lone human walk through his hall months ago. "This semester, I witnessed something I did not expect," he said. His voice was rough and measured, the voice of a soldier who chose each word the way he chose each step on a battlefield. "I watched a species that has no claws, no armor, no venom, and no natural weapon of any kind walk into this academy and earn its place. Not through strength, through something I did not have a name for until now." He paused. "The humans have an old word. They call it will. It is not the same as courage, and it is not the same as stubbornness. It is the decision made fresh every single day, every single hour, that the mission matters more than the pain, that the people beside you matter more than the fire in front of you. That falling down is not the end, because you have already decided that you will stand up again." He looked at Lyra. "Welcome to the Collegium, Commander Voss. Humanity has earned its place." The applause began with Koreth, a thunderous, four-armed percussion that shook the air. It spread through the colonnade like a storm, growing louder as species after species added their voices. It rolled off the crystal walls and echoed up toward the clouds that formed beneath the impossibly high ceiling. Lyra stood in the center of it and let herself feel it. Later, she walked out of the colonnade into the golden light of the triple sunrise. The campus stretched before her, ancient and alien and beautiful. Rin fell into step beside her, his scales catching the light in shifting patterns of green and silver. "So," he said, "what comes next for the most terrifying species in the galaxy?" Lyra looked out at the sky. Somewhere beyond it, past the three suns and the distant stars, Earth was turning, small, blue, and full of soft, stubborn, breakable people who would walk into fire if they believed the other side was worth reaching. She smiled. "We keep going," she said. "We always keep going, that is the whole point." Beneath the armor, the symbiote clicked softly, not in pain, but in something that felt, for the first time, like peace. They walked together into the light, and the galaxy watched them go.